All right. Well, hi, folks. Hope everybody can hear me okay. I am Vic Bangia, CEO of Verum Consulting, and let me extend my welcome to all of you tuning in from all over the world tonight. This is a workshop on building and maintaining client loyalty in commercial real estate. And momentarily, I will introduce you to Darren Krakowiak, but before I do, let me encourage you to get comfortable, to free yourself from distractions such as your cell phone, your pets, your children, your spouses, whatever. We're going to have an hour together, and there'll be some Q&A afterwards. So please save your questions until the end. We'll invite you to unmute your line or type in your question at that time. But feel free to contribute to the conversation whenever you would like via the chat, and you can chat directly to me or within the group. The promise today is that today's session will help you reduce the risk of losing clients. Darren will discuss 5 strategies that you can put in place right away. They're fairly common sense approaches, and we'll also talk about how existing clients can become reliable advocates who deliver relevant referrals that keep your pipeline full. So with the housekeeping out of the way, let's get into it. Let's talk about loyalty. In Microsoft's recent 2021 Work Index annual report, their survey revealed that 40% of the global workforce is considering leaving their employer. 40%, that's a huge number. Can any of us imagine losing 40% of our clients? It's almost unbelievable until you peel back and understand the drivers. And that is that loyalty is a two-way construct. And that's true whether you're in commercial real estate, corporate real estate, architecture and design, or any other real estate service profession. To get loyalty, you have to give loyalty. So let me introduce Darren Krakowiak. With 20 years of experience in commercial real estate, Darren founded CRE Success last year to transform professional development in the sector. Darren has a broad understanding of the industry, acquired from a variety of leadership roles, including country head at CBRE Korea and numerous department head roles at JLL in Asia Pacific. Drawing on his passion for helping people achieve their full potential, Darren established CRE Success to fill a gap that he saw. That is, to provide guidance and support to all types of CRE professionals in an engaging, modern, and relevant way. Darren also hosts CRE Success, the podcast, and that's where he and I met. I was a guest on his podcast several months ago. And over that time have learned that we think very similarly. We also facilitate corporate training and present as invited speakers at industry and company events. Darren is based in Melbourne, Australia. He's married and has one baby daughter who's turning 1 year old at the end of this month. So please help me welcome Darren.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Vic. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Darren. How are you?
I'm good. It's a very, what we would call chilly in Melbourne because it's 10 degrees Celsius, which I think is around 45, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So by our standards, it's very, very cold today.
Yeah, it's warmer here in Minneapolis today.
Very, very good. That's not often the case where it's the other way around, but I guess we're opposite sides of the world. So it is 7 a.m. Friday morning. Thank you for that introduction, Vic. Really appreciate you inviting many people within your network to be with us today. We're talking about client loyalty. And I think when you think of loyalty, the most obvious thing that comes to mind, for me at least, is the loyalty that dogs show their owners. So apologies if you're a cat person, but today I'm really playing to the dog lovers of the world because I think that dogs really do exemplify what it means to be loyal. So let's get into the topic today. And I want to talk about why it's important. And I think one main reason is that the numbers don't lie. So we heard some interesting stats about 40% of employees looking to leave their work. Well, I'm sure you've heard the statistic, or at least a version of it, that it costs at least 5 times more to attract a new customer than it does to retain an existing one. And studies have shown that the probability of converting an existing customer is anywhere from sort of 60 to 70%, whereas the likelihood of converting a new prospect is only 5 to 20%. So that means it's anywhere from 3 to 14 times easier to sell something to somebody who is an existing customer than it is to sell to a new customer. So it's not surprising that lifting customer retention by just 5% can increase your profits anywhere from 25 to 95%. So I just wanted to present you with some cold hard data, which really shows why retaining customers and instilling loyalty in them is such an important topic. One thing that I don't need any statistics to prove to you is that happy customers are more likely to become loyal clients. And unless you're running a monopoly, the loyal clients that you have are also probably happy customers. No doubt this little girl is very happy with her ice cream, and I think that she will be back for more if her parents let her, of course. So let's talk about how we can make our clients just as happy as a kid with ice cream, although I've been known to like ice cream quite a lot too. So, but I'll spare you a photo of me eating ice cream after dinner. So let's get into it. 5 proven strategies I want to cover to reduce the risk of losing clients. Because before our loyal clients can generate repeat business and referrals to fill our pipeline, we need to retain them in the first place, right? So here's 5 ways that we can go about reducing the risk of losing existing clients. And the first way to do that is to be responsive. And here's a few ways that you can do that. I think we want to prioritize existing client requests and tasks. There's a saying, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. And I think sometimes we spend a lot of time chasing new prospects, chasing down new leads, that sometimes we can neglect the customers and clients that are already there. And I know that I find it really annoying and frustrating when I'm feeling like I'm ignored. So one thing that you can do is to have a standard by which emails and calls will be responded to from existing customers, no matter what the nature of the inquiry is. You might decide it's, within 12 hours, we'll always at least acknowledge that we received some correspondence via phone or email. Maybe it's a certain number of business hours. Maybe you'll say, if it comes in on Saturday, I'll get back to them on Monday. Whatever it is, have some sort of system and standard in place so you know that you'll always be responding to your existing clients in a timely manner. Now, if you can't
Darren, do you have a personal amount of time that you use yourself?
Yeah, I try to do it within 4 hours is what I try to do, 4 business hours. Yeah, I don't want to be too quick, because if I'm too quick, I feel like I'm setting unless it's urgent on their side and, I do need to provide a timely response. My challenge is, I think, if you respond too quickly all the time, then you're setting the expectation that you're always going to be available to respond within 10 minutes. So you definitely do not want to set that expectation. You don't want to set the expectation that you'll always be responding, whether it's 10 p.m. at night or 6 a.m. in the morning. So I think you want to set some reasonable boundaries, but also set the cadence that is within a reasonable amount of time you'll be responding. Because when a client does contact you with a question, and if you don't get back to them, if a certain amount of time elapses and they start thinking that maybe you're busy or you're not going to come back to them, that's when they start calling someone else. And that's where you start opening up opportunities for other service providers to be more than willing to answer their questions. And then you risk that your clients are going to start calling other people before they call you when they have questions to be answered. So yeah, I think around 4 hours. What about you, Vic?
Yeah, that's about right too. Yeah, if I can respond back by the close of business every day to anything that's come across during the day, I will definitely do that. Sometimes I carve out a certain portion of my day and say, I'm just going to answer all my emails and requests during that hour.
I think that's a good one. I've definitely heard people that do, try and get everything that's come in that day out the door or responded to by the end of the day. It's another good strategy. Look, I think if you can't respond to calls or you can't respond to emails, then you really need to work on your time management or your delegation processes or your systems. And I don't think we should ever make the assumption that, I know what they're calling about. I know it's not important. I can get back to them later. We need to assume that because they're contacting us, it's very important, or at least it's important to them. We definitely do not want them getting frustrated and starting to call somebody else. All right, so I might move on to number 2 now. That was number 1, be responsive. Number 2 is to be proactive. And there's a distinction here. There's a difference between responsive and reactive. So I don't think that being responsive is contradictory to the first point of being proactive. So let me sort of explain what I mean, the difference between proactive and responsive versus reactive. And I think when we're being proactive, one thing we can do is we can contact our clients and just check in with them and let them know, even when there is no update, that the update is there's no update. So before a question rises in their mind, we're letting them know that, hey, everything's under control, or perhaps, hey, we haven't heard back from this stakeholder or from this vendor or from whomever it is on this topic, but I'm just letting you know that I'm following it up and I'll let you know as soon as we do get a response. I think another thing that we can do to be proactive is to anticipate questions based on our experience. So we can think about, what do clients usually ask about at that stage of the process? And if we know what clients are likely to be thinking, we can offer that up as information at that stage of the process. What that does is it saves them from having to ask the question. And sometimes a client might be thinking, maybe I want, and they're a bit hesitant to ask the question because they don't want to look stupid, or because, whatever it might be. By offering it up as information, you're being proactive and you're showing your knowledge and your willingness to add value at all stages of the process and to help. Another thing that you can do is to fix problems before they arise. That's a great way to be proactive, particularly if you're in a relationship as a service provider where you're empowered to show that initiative. You can fix problems before they arise and just report back that, hey, this was going on, this is how we remedied it, and just wanted to let you know. And that can be in your usual, weekly or wherever you catch up with them regularly, to let them know what's going on, rather than having to check in with them to ask them about what is potentially a small thing that you are empowered to remedy. One other thing you can do is, I think, foreshadow issues and offer solutions for how to deal with them before they are issues. So if you're in a transaction and you know at a certain stage of the transaction that you're likely to hit a speed bump, I think that if you say, hey, this is likely to happen at this point of the process, this is how we might want to deal with it, just letting you know, what you're doing is you're taking away the element of surprise, which is potentially a nasty surprise. And the beauty of this is that you'll get credit if the problem doesn't come up, because they think that, oh, it's something that does often come up, but it didn't come up because you're such a great manager of the process. Or you'll get appreciation if the problem does happen, because at least they were warned about it. So using your knowledge to communicate things that you know could happen or are likely to happen are all ways that you can be proactive and reduce the risk of losing some of your best clients.
And proactively asking a lot of questions too is a good technique. Checking in with your client on a regular basis with a question to keep them engaged is a technique that I use frequently as well.
100%. More questions we ask, the better we know them, and the better we can understand what's going on from their perspective, and build a better relationship, one based on mutual understanding. All right, let's get into number 3. Number 3 is to think long term. That's my third way to reduce the risk of losing clients. Want to focus on those long-term relationships. So I don't know if you've ever walked through a market and felt like you're a walking ATM, when all of the people who are selling stuff are looking at you like, oh, are they going to buy from me? Are they going to buy from me? Well, that's kind of like our clients. We don't want to look at them and see an ATM. We want to look at every situation as a chance to add value. So don't think about how to make a quick buck. It's a bit cliche. Think about how we can really deliver value into the process. And I think, to the point of asking questions, Vic, having empathy for the client and thinking about things from their perspective is something that's really relevant here. Putting yourself in the client's position will help you understand them more and, of course, serve them better. And it's also going to improve your relationship with them as well. When you look to add value to the client and not just add revenue to your business, ironically, that is when revenue will flow even more, because the client will often sense your good intent and the relationship will only grow. One of the best compliments that one of my team members got from a client was that she cares more about the outcome. She cares about the outcome just as much as we do. And I said to my team member, I want you to get that in a LinkedIn recommendation, because that's a really good line. I think when the client feels that you care about the result for them more than you care about your fee, what you've got there is a client who is not very open to the idea of working with other service providers. So the main point here is, with clients, just like in any long-term relationship, whether it's family, friends, or a romantic partner, don't take them for granted and make sure you're thinking about the long term.
Yeah, it's an old phrase, but I always like to say, think of us as an extension of your team. We're not separate entity. We're really coming right alongside you with the same goals and outcomes in mind.
100%. And I think, in a lot of the work that you do, Vic, with managing very complex outsourcing arrangements, there's really, as you get deep with the client, there's more of an opportunity to, you're not sitting on opposite ends of, or, opposing ends of a table, you're all sitting together. And I think when a third party walks into the room and they don't even know who's the client and who's the service provider, that's when you're in a really good place when it comes
exactly.
to having developed a really strong relationship, and you're embedded, if you like, with your client. All right, so the fourth way to avoid losing clients is to simply deliver results. And importantly, here we want to make sure we're not only delivering results, but we're also making sure that our client understands the superior outcomes that we are producing. So we want to calculate and then clearly communicate the value that's been added to the process. So we want to explain how the client benefits and why it matters. So it could be the benefit of saving time. It could, of course, be some sort of a revenue or cost benefit. So cost saving, additional revenue, maybe it's just peace of mind. So, tenant rep was where I did most of my transaction work as a commercial real estate professional. And, I think back to, pointing out to improvements that we'd made to a lease. I wouldn't say that, hey, we reduced the increase from 3.5% to 2.5% in years, whatever. I would say, yeah, we reduced the annual increase from 3.5 to 2.5, say in years 2 and 3, but that's a saving of X amount over the lease term, and it's X amount over the renewal or the option period. And what that does is it crystallizes in the client's mind about the value that you're adding throughout the process. And importantly, it makes them understand the invoice when they receive it, because they don't get so much sticker shock when they understand the value that you're adding to the process. Finally, the fifth way to avoid losing clients is by letting them know that they are important. And one of the easiest and most meaningful ways that you can do this, I think, is by showing gratitude. So firstly, make sure you say thank you, right? It doesn't cost anything to say thank you. And clients do have plenty of choices, so we don't want to take them for granted. I think we really want to let them know that their business matters to us. Next point I want to share here is that we want to provide, if we are providing entertainment or gifts, we want to make sure that they're relevant. Not everyone wants to go for deal closing drinks. Not everyone wants to spend all day playing golf, right? I think everyone has enough USB sticks and portable mobile phone chargers, yeah? So rather than giving people crappy gifts or things that you want to do, have a think about, if I'm going to invite someone out, what would they like to do? And make sure that they're likely to enjoy it, not just something that you want to do. If you're going to provide 100 gifts at a client event, make it something nice, not something that everyone has with your logo plastered on it. I think if you are giving gifts on a personalized basis, it's important to make them personalized and to make them memorable. You don't have to spend a lot of money if you spend just a little bit of time thinking about the gift that you're giving. So the best example that I know of with this one, and Vic, I'm sure you've used this yourself, is to share books with inscriptions in them. And, an example that I know of is one of my clients had a baby. Sorry, no, it was one of my staff had a baby, and, the baby's crying all the time. But he found a really good book that helped him deal with that. And then he had a client who was dealing with that same situation, and he gifted the client the book. And the client, of course, really appreciated that. And the magic of this little, tactic is that when you receive a book from somebody, you actually associate the benefit of the book, not with the person who wrote it, but with the person who gave you the book. So, for better or for worse, whenever he's getting a good night's sleep now, he's not thinking about the person who wrote the book. He's possibly thinking about his service provider who gave him that magical book that now gives him all of that additional sleep. So,
yeah. Well, so this is the book that I give to my clients. It's called Play to Win. It's an old book from 1998, and it's by Larry Wilson. It's a shift in mindset from playing not to lose to playing to win. It's a very nuanced way of thinking, but the book changed my life. And when I work with my clients, from the outset, am coaching them that we are going to be in this particular outsourcing initiative, strategic planning initiative, reopening strategy, all of it. We're in it to play to win, not to play not to lose. Playing not to lose is a defensive move. Playing to win is an optimistic and positive move. And then at the end of my engagement with the client, I give everybody on the team that particular book. And I've done that ever since I've had my business. It's a great way of showing appreciation as well.
So Vic, should we check in with the audience and find out which one of those 5 strategies perhaps sort of stood out for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at this, what's showing on the screen, we're asking you which of the 5 techniques that Darren presented is one that's stood out for you. Is it to be responsive, be proactive, think long-term, deliver results, or show gratitude? Which one works the best for you? Which one do you use the most often? If you can answer that in the chat, that would be great. And I'll communicate that back to Darren, and perhaps he can see the chat. Somebody asked me for a link to that book, Play to Win, and I will get that out to everybody as well. And I'll also send everybody a link to that Microsoft report that I mentioned in the opening statements. I think that was something that everybody should read about the shifting loyalty in corporate America. It looks like we're getting a lot of number 2 and being proactive. We have a number 5, which is showing gratitude. Fairly, disparate amount of responses, but a lot of being proactive. I think that seems to work well for most of the people. And of course, somebody mentioned all of them, which is true. You have to really think of all of these as being part of the approach to your clients.
I think we've got a question here. I'll read it out and we'll see if we can deal with it, Vic. It says, I'm dealing with responding too soon, but it's coming back to bite me. But if I don't, I get bogged down with emails, etc., and I'll forget. Any advice on how to stay organized so you don't forget something you have to respond to? Do you want to take that one first, or do you want me to go first, Vic?
Go ahead and go first if you would.
Okay. So what I would advise you to do is, if you're having problems with, getting bogged down with emails, and you're worried that if you don't deal with it right away, that you might not deal with it later, it sounds like that you're working with your inbox on all day. And what I would suggest that you do perhaps is to turn your inbox off, or at least don't open it for a couple of hours at a time. And that'll do 2 things. One, it will allow you to do more deep work when you are not working on emails, because you're not going to get what's called a cognitive switching penalty from switching around all the time to different screens and to different tasks. But what will also happen is that you'll not be responding so quickly, because some emails will actually wait 2 hours before you respond. And what I found is that anything that's really truly important, someone will call you. If the building's on fire, someone will call you. They're not going to email you about that. So it's likely that anything that's in your inbox can wait for a couple of hours. So the way I would deal with it is just maybe 3 times a day. That's my emailing time. Maybe and I don't suggest doing it the first thing in the morning. Do something else that's important to you the first thing in the morning. And maybe you say between 9 and 9:30, between 12 and 12:30, and then maybe, before the end of the day, you try and clear out your inbox for the day. But that is how I would deal with that. What do you think, Vic?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That's one of the reasons I mentioned setting aside a particular time of the day to respond to emails. I had to do that because I had gotten my inbox was just overwhelming me. And then I was I started to have the bad habit of responding to an email whenever it came across. So I have my cell phone on my nightstand, and I'm trying to go to bed, and it's 11:30 and I'm getting emails, and then I'm waking up to respond to them. It was just not the right way to go. So I started carving out certain times of the day to respond to them. Now I leave my inbox on and I monitor it for things that I can respond to quickly without, disrupting my day. But if it's something that can wait, I typically wait. If it's something from you, Darren, I'll respond right away because I know you're on a different time zone, and I don't want to respond when you're in bed. But you know what I mean. It's really coming up with what works best for you. But I found that sometimes it's best to let me get my work done, and then at the end of my day, before I shut everything down, let's go ahead and respond to all the emails and clear that out.
Yeah, I think the person who wrote the question said, I used to have notifications off, but I need to go back to that. 100%. So that little thing that pops up in the corner of your window with every time an email comes through, get rid of that. Get rid of the little mail icon that comes in the corner as well if you can't help yourself. If those things are distracting you, then just turn off your Outlook and then turn it on again when you need to use it. Definitely turn off if you've got Outlook firing up automatically when you turn on your email. I know a lot of people have that. Get rid of that. Lots of things that you can do to save a bit of time. And it's about, I think, giving yourself permission to not have to monitor your email at all hours. I remember I had a team member who said to me, I saw an email at 2 a.m. like the night before. I'm like, why did you respond at 2 a.m. to this? He goes, oh, because I got an email about it then. I'm like, really? Like, you're not expected to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've got one more comment here, Vic. Should we deal with it now?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. That's an interesting question. So if you want to go ahead and
I'll read it. I haven't read it yet, so I'll let you take this one. It says, the point around demonstrating positive intent, I think, is key to establishing meaningful, trusting relationships. With the experience you both have, could you share examples where you have demonstrated positive intent and it served as a breakthrough moment in your relationship with the client?
Yeah. So interestingly, in my world where I help clients with corporate real estate outsourcing initiatives, oftentimes I am telling them about how service providers think, a little bit about how they run their pro formas, what's important to them, because I've been on both sides of the table. I've been a end user head of corporate real estate for large corporations like Unical and Ameriprise Financial. I've been on the service provider side selling outsourced solutions to those same companies. And because I've been on both sides, I understand the nuances and the dynamics. But once I'm working for a client, and I exclusively work on the client side now, I don't work for service providers, I can tell the client what's going on and how the service providers are thinking. So the best thing I can do to demonstrate positive intent is show my client that I understand what's really important to them and what is the driver for some of the service providers' attitudes, behaviors, positioning, and approach to an outsourcing initiative. So that is really, sort of the key to showing positive intent for the client. Once they feel like you're on their side and you have, their best interests at heart and exclusively have their best interests at heart, that's when the relationship is solidified.
Yeah, good example. I think rather than give an example, I would just give a comment, which is, when you're advising the client in a way that could lead to a lower revenue result for you in the short term, then I think, you're really demonstrating a positive intent, and, you'll pick up the revenue down the line. If anything, that you lose through giving advice, which is better for the client in the short term, but perhaps doesn't result in more revenue at that immediate moment. Vic's just put in the link to the book. We do have a bit more content to get through, Vic. So I see there's a couple of other comments there, but maybe we can park those for the moment and we'll come back to them after we get through the next section.
Sure, absolutely. Let's continue on.
Okay. So if you have made a comment, we haven't come to it, please just hold your fire, maybe copy and paste it on your copy and paste it on your desktop, and we'll come back to it if you want to re-ask it. I've just got another maybe 10 minutes of content to get through. And what I want to talk about now is how we can turn existing clients into loyal and reliable advocates who deliver relevant referrals that keep our pipeline full. So I've got 3 ideas. Again, not earth-shattering ideas, but just some simple things that all of us can do in order to help our existing clients generate more future business for us in the way of referrals. And the first thing that I'd recommend doing is that you start collecting testimonials. And getting recommendations or testimonials will really help you leverage the work that you're doing with existing clients so you can acquire new customers. When you go about asking for recommendations, what I think you'll end up with is a library of testimonials that you can draw on whenever you need to for whichever situation is the right one. I think nothing that you can say is going to be as valuable as the social proof that comes from what an existing client has to say to sing your praises. So if you go to my LinkedIn, this is a picture of my LinkedIn, I actually got a new one yesterday. So I've got 29 now testimonials on my LinkedIn, which might be a little bit over the top. It doesn't mean I'm 29 times better than you if you've only got one. It doesn't mean I'm infinitely better than you if you've got none. But what it does mean is that I've got 29 times more social proof on my profile than someone who's only got one recommendation, right? That's just mathematics. And I think the great thing about asking for a testimonial is that this process will also get your existing clients who are writing those recommendations thinking about why it is that they're recommending you in the first place. And what it does is it reminds them of why you're a great partner, which then it does a few things. It serves the purpose of keeping them loyal because they remember why it is that they like working with you, but also helps them write a better testimonial. And the testimonial that I got yesterday was a really good one. And then I sent a text message to the client. I said, "Oh, thanks for writing that. It was really great." And he said to me, no, thank you. Even my mum has noticed a change in me since I started working with you. And I was just like sort of floored, like wow, like I would never have heard that if I hadn't have asked for the testimonial. And I was really touched by it, right? So, you start to get a little bit deeper with your clients when you just start asking them to think about, what it is that is important to them. And I think you just want to make sure that we're asking for them at the right moment. So a good moment is obviously when everything's going right. So don't ask for testimonials when you need them. Ask for testimonials when you don't need them, when everything's going well, when they've just told you that they're happy with something. And when you do ask for that testimonial, give the client a little bit of guidance about what they should write. So ask them, what is it that you were most satisfied with? Can you share the biggest way that our involvement helped the overall results or the business? And one final tip on testimonials or recommendations is that if you're going to use LinkedIn as a way to ask for testimonials, which I recommend, it's a good way to do it, always give the person a call or contact them off LinkedIn before you send them that recommendation request on LinkedIn, because you want to ask their permission to send that request before you actually ask them, can you write a recommendation for my LinkedIn profile? It just, I would call it a two-step process. It's just a bit more polite, I think, than just sending, can you write me a recommendation on LinkedIn before you've asked for or given them some context around why you're asking.
Yeah, absolutely. I have testimonials on my website for Verum Consulting. I also have them on LinkedIn. And when I've asked for testimonials or I've asked for recommendations from clients, I've always asked them just to tell the story, to kind of don't just butter me up or say something nice, but talk about the experience, because that's really what I want to communicate to my prospective clients, is how this client experienced working with my company or with me. And so if you read those testimonials, they're more heartfelt, they're more personal, they're more meaningful because they are authentic and sincere.
I should clarify that the story about the mum that I mentioned before, he works in a family business with his mum. So that's why his mum noticed the difference. I'm not helping people with their relationships with their mums, just to be clear. All right. I said I was, appealing to the dog crowd. So here's another dog. What do dogs do when they want something? They let their owner know that they want it, right? Dogs aren't ashamed to use a bit of pizzazz, a bit of persuasion. Hence the term puppy dog eyes, or, begging like a dog. I'm not saying you should beg, but what I do think is that if you want your clients to give you referrals, you've got to ask for them. So the number 2 way to turn your existing clients into loyal advocates who will generate referrals to fill your pipeline is to ask for the referral. There's a statistic that I saw from the 2021 DNA of CRE survey, which was 500 brokers, which is done by the Broker List. Linda Day Harrison, who is actually a guest on my podcast this season as well. And the question was, how do you prospect for new clients? And the number one response was referrals from past clients. Okay, that was a more common response than cold calling or outbound prospecting. That was cold calling, outbound prospecting. 65% of respondents said they do that. 80% of respondents said they rely on referrals. So this is a real and potent source of growth in your business, but you need to activate it, and you activate it by asking people for those referrals. Here's the thing, right?
Yeah, well, in the outsourcing world, referrals are everything because in a way, repeat business is probably not a good thing. If somebody's calling me back, it means I didn't do a good job, unless it's 5 years down the road or 8 years down the road where they're rebidding their outsourcing relationship. That's when you want to call me back. But if you're calling me back sooner than that, then it's because I did something wrong. The best thing you can do as a client of mine is tell other clients that, hey, if you want the right, relationship-based approach to outsourcing, kind of the eHarmony of outsourcing, which is what I like to call my company's approach, then call Vic. And that's the full-throated endorsement like that means more to me than anything else. And that's really what those types of referrals have been to me. And then most of my work comes through referrals. It's amazing.
That's great. And I think the challenge that some people have is that we're not always top of mind for our clients, right? So our clients, sadly, are not walking around thinking of ways to add value to our business, even though you might be walking around thinking of ways to add value to your client's business. So we need to kind of plant a seed and let them know that we're interested in working with other clients who are similar to them or on similar projects. If we let them know that, they might just see an opportunity to refer business to us that wouldn't otherwise occur to them. So again, asking this question at the right time is a good strategy. So when they're letting you know that they're happy, or maybe at the conclusion of the project, or when you've done something really valuable, I'm really glad that you're pleased with that. Just to let you know, this is really what we specialize in. And then when you ask for them to keep an eye out for a referral, I would recommend letting them know what I call, what people call a 5-star client is. So you'd say, if you know of anyone in this geography, in this sector, around this size, who's looking to do this, and, whatever your sort of 4 or 5 criteria are for the type of client that you want to work with, make it specific, because otherwise they're just going to be sending you, not so great referrals and thinking that they're doing a great job. If they're going to be looking for referrals, they're only going to send you a few, right? So make sure the ones they send you are worth the favor that they're giving you. Don't waste the favor on bad referrals. So give them some specifics about the types of referrals that you want.
Excellent.
Okay. Let's get into number 3. This is the third way to generate referrals. It's all about making sure that your existing clients are happy. Now, I'm sure that you've probably heard the idea that a happy customer will tell one person about their experience, but an unhappy customer tells about 10 people about their experience. So we want to reduce the risk of bad word of mouth by making sure that our existing clients are happy. And if you want to make sure your clients are happy, then you need to be able to measure how happy they are, right? And the fact is, some clients don't tell us when they're happy. They're hard-nosed. They just expect that you should be doing the right thing all the time. So we need some ways to measure client satisfaction that perhaps isn't based on the feedback that we get from them. And a few ways that you can do this, I think, customer retention rates. So are your clients actually, repeat customers? Are they doing business with you on a long-term basis? Are there high instances of exclusivity? So if your client has a portfolio, are you doing everything within their portfolio? Or are they spreading the love? Or maybe you're telling yourself they're spreading the risk. Really, the question to ask yourself is, why haven't I done enough for them to put all their eggs in one basket with me? And why don't I have that trust with them? Pricing is another way that you can measure how loyal your customers are. If you're charging premium pricing, probably your clients are pretty happy. If you're constantly having to discount, then you're compensating for something else. So premium pricing is a measure of client loyalty. Certainly client surveys are one. And I say that, it's difficult sometimes to get clients to complete surveys, right? So if you can't get them to complete the survey, then these are some other ways. But if you can get them to complete the survey, great. Of course, client satisfaction surveys, net promoter score, all that's good. But I've got a little bit of a thing about this. And I personally think, based on my experience, people are more likely to chase clients for their customer satisfaction survey if they know they're going to get a good result than they are to chase a client who wasn't so happy with the outcome. So I think they're a little bit skewed. I don't think that a client satisfaction survey result is the measure that I would want to be using. I'd be looking more at my pricing, at my rates of retention, and also, the level of exclusivity I have within a client portfolio to measure, along with client satisfaction scores, how satisfied the client is. Now, if you've got a client who doesn't want to complete the survey, maybe say to them, can we do it over the phone? Can I take you for a coffee and I'll just talk you through it? We definitely do want to draw out those responses. I'm not saying they're worthless. All I'm saying is that I think the results are sometimes skewed.
Yeah. If you are working on a project that has different phases, it may be good to check in and measure satisfaction at each stage of the process. So for instance, when I do my work, I have a discovery process that I go through. Once that discovery process is over, I'll typically ask the client, what did you think of that? Tell me what your feedback is about the discovery portion of the process. And sometimes I'll even sort of, in a way, tease them a little bit. And if they give me some good feedback on that, I'll say, hey, that sounds like a testimonial, But the satisfaction that measures along the way builds up into the overall level of satisfaction. So if you can measure it in stages, it would be good to do.
So I think before we get into a Q&A and discussion, Vic, we might ask for the audience participation one more time via the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So feel free to respond in the chat. We're going to ask you here, which one of the techniques that Darren called out here are you going to implement first? So are you going to start collecting testimonials, asking for referrals, or measuring satisfaction?
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Right, so a lot of folks are responding with collecting testimonials, and again, very powerful approach to help you grow your business. All of them is a great response. Marcus responded all of them to the earlier question too. So
it'll be a busy
Marcus has got this down. Everything that you've communicated today, Darren, has resonated with Marcus. But again, collecting testimonials, asking for referrals, or measuring satisfaction, which one of those will you implement first? So it looks like we've still got some responses coming in, and a lot of ones. We'll see a couple threes in here. But yeah, so testimonials are certainly the most powerful. If somebody is speaking on your behalf about their level of satisfaction and their ability to, or their willingness to use you again, the willingness to recommend you to others, a full-throated endorsement by a client is gold.
So Vic, we've got about 15 minutes left. Before we invite members of our audience to contribute, to ask a question, did you have any sort of thoughts in summary about what we've covered today?
Well, yeah. So largely, I think loyalty is something that needs to be cultivated. Loyalty takes work. It's a relationship that results in loyalty, and if you can keep your clients satisfied and in your mind on a regular basis, that'll go far to helping. So one of the things we didn't talk about is really the power of social media and the power of communication through social media to help create brand loyalty, individual loyalty, and customer loyalty. So, you have to kind of look at loyalty is happening on multiple fronts. It's direct loyalty between you and your client.
Oh. Sorry, Vic, I accidentally hit a button there and I have muted you by accident because I was going to unmute everyone. So my apologies. Can you just unmute yourself? Thanks.
Yeah, you did that on purpose. I know. No, I'm just kidding. I think I was saying that loyalty exists in a few different ways. It exists between you and your client, certainly, but there is brand loyalty and individual loyalty that can happen through things like social media. You know, people that read my articles or my thought leadership pieces or my books, or all the people that are on this webinar tonight that took my invitation to join, have a level of loyalty to the kinds of things that I'm putting out there. It's establishing a brand loyalty. It's establishing a personal loyalty. Some of these folks are not my clients. You know, some of them are just colleagues in industry, peers and friends I've had in the industry for a long time. But ultimately, they may become advocates for potential business for me, and I may be the same for them. So one of the things not to discount in the discussion of loyalty is building brand loyalty and building it through things like social media, thought leadership, and other channels.
An interesting point related to what you've just said is the opportunity to transfer loyalty, right? Or to at least borrow loyalty through an existing relationship or loyalty that the equity that somebody else has built up, right? So this is a partnership with you and me, and you know, we're in the United States time zone, and this is an opportunity for me to talk to some new people, to borrow some of the loyalty that you have from some of the people who perhaps I haven't had a chance to speak to before. So, you know, sort of related to referrals, but you know, the good word that you can get from somebody else can speed up that loyalty process and that credibility process as well.
Yeah, and vice versa. I mean, when I was a guest on your podcast a few months ago, based on just the contacts that I've made in Melbourne and Sydney and Hong Kong and other places from people that were on that last webinar, was amazing. You know, I got probably 20 new contacts out of that discussion, including somebody here in the U.S. that I'm talking to right now about an opportunity. So, yeah, absolutely, the transfer of loyalty exists.
Awesome. Okay, so what we might do now, Vic, is there are two ways that people can ask a question, I think, right? They can put a Q in the, we've got some people unmuting now. I'm going to just mute everyone again. So you can type a Q into the question, into the chat, and then we will ask you to unmute yourself if you want to speak. If you don't want to speak, you can just type your question into the chat, and then you will be able to just write the question and we'll be able to answer it. So type in the letter Q if you want to unmute yourself and ask us a question, be part of the discussion, or just type your question into the chat. We're answering questions on client loyalty, but really on anything that you think Vic and I would be able to help you with in today's discussion, right, Vic?
Yep, absolutely. Any questions you'd like to ask.
Okay.
So somebody was asking your last name, and I entered your last name in the chat there.
I just kindly updated my name on my
oh, there you go.
on the thing as well. So yeah, while we're waiting for the first question to come through, please do follow Vic and I on LinkedIn if we're not already connected. Both of us share a lot of content very similar to what we've talked about today. And, you know, we're happy to stay connected, and yeah, please do connect with us so we can continue to share some information with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter. On LinkedIn, I actually have on my website, I actually have 2 books that I've written on corporate real estate strategies that are free. You can download them, just click on the book icon. It'll pull up a PDF version of that book, and you can right click and save it. And it's you know, full of articles that I've written on corporate real estate strategies, personal and professional growth, and includes articles on loyalty. There was one called "The Incredible Shrinking Loyalty Trick." That was one of the articles that's included in that book. But happy to give those books away and for your reading pleasure while we're all in lockdown.
Why don't we have a look back through the chat? And I think we've got one new question there, Vic, but I'm going back through the chat. Do you want to read out the current one?
Yeah, the first one, and this is true. I have this happening right now. Many companies indicate they don't give testimonials. What other content can we retrieve to help with getting something similar? I have, you know, I do work for a lot of Fortune 500 companies. I have 2 Fortune 500 companies right now, neither of which could go public and give me a testimonial. I have a couple on my website where I've had to say financial services executive or something similar to sort of shield that individual from being identified as the person giving the testimonial. That's been a challenge. I've had to, kind of work around how to make announcements about successes that we've had together with particular clients, and that does become a challenge. So what I would suggest is that, if you can do this, I remember there was an insurance head of real estate for an insurance company that gave me a testimonial, and that's what I did. I didn't put their name, but I just put, insurance company VP of real estate. So if they can be comfortable giving you a testimonial without disclosing their name, that could be something that you do as a workaround.
I think sometimes LinkedIn can be a workaround as well. Like if they're not going to give you a formal testimonial, like from the company, a personal testimonial or recommendation on your LinkedIn profile is something that they could give. They could also just click, against the icon with all of your skills. They can certainly endorse you for skills. And another opportunity is when people leave organizations, asking them for a recommendation after you leave about the work that you did with that organization that perhaps is a little bit protective of sharing the work you do. There's nothing stopping a person who's left the organization to talk about the work that you did with them. And that's a way that you can highlight or spotlight the work that you're doing with them as well. So there's some potential ideas on how to get around that.
Yeah, and I did take a recommendation letter from a CFO I reported directly to at a previous employer who gave me a letter, and I was able to put that right on LinkedIn as a way of getting a testimonial without getting a testimonial.
One of the earlier comments was about, we're talking about emails before and time management, and it was from Lenny saying, I try not to look at emails, but my company management has a bad habit of emailing instead of calling. So sometimes I miss an important message.
Wow.
I would say that I don't think there's anything in that, though, that's going to stop you from just checking your emails 2 or 3 times a day. So, there's a good strategy that I heard of from the head of, I think, technology at Atlassian. And the strategy is called boomerangs and sticks, right? So basically your emails, they come in and you can either, delete them or you reply to them. But, and if you get a request and you don't deal with it and you just throw it away like a stick, it never comes back to you. But if you throw it away and it actually turns out to be a boomerang, it will come back to you. So sometimes the way of dealing with things is just to figure out if it's a boomerang or a stick, just throw it away. And if it comes back to you, it's important. And if it doesn't come back to you, it probably wasn't that important. Now, I do advise if you're getting invoices and bills and notes from your clients and your boss or whatever, maybe you want to treat them like boomerangs. But there could be, if you notice that there's certain people or certain types of messages that are coming in a lot that aren't that important, maybe start treating them like sticks. When they're occasionally boomerangs, they will come back to you.
Yeah, and for those of you who do go to my website and download the books, I think one of the articles in one of the books is called "When Everything is Urgent," and it was sort of a play on the Covey quadrant, about urgent and important. And one of the things I say in there is, answer the email, but pick up the phone, because even if your company communicates via email, sometimes it's just better to pick up the phone. One, for clarity, because a lot of times email communication can leave something, leave holes. Sometimes you find out that something communicated in email that sounds like it's urgent really isn't. And you can clarify and ask questions around any kind of email correspondence just by picking up the phone and calling the individual that sent it. So I tried to, give tips on how to manage your time better, because sometimes everything seems to be urgent. And not everything is.
100%. Seems like some people are fairly satisfied with the answers that we've given there. And we've got one comment: if you put your client's interests first when making decisions, that drives client loyalty by a 10x factor. So I'll take that more as a comment than a question, but 100% agree. And everyone's looking to 10x their life. I didn't even know what 10x was until a couple of months ago, and then I started seeing it everywhere. Yeah, good advice, I think.
Yeah, very great advice.
Well, we're nearly up on time. We might just start to wrap up, and maybe if there is any more questions, now's the time to do it. If you've been sitting on it, to type that Q into the chat, or to type your question into the chat. Vic, we've mentioned LinkedIn. Is there any other ways that people can, stay connected with you and follow what it is that you're putting out there?
Well, sure. Yeah. So I do post some things on Twitter, not as active on Twitter, but Twitter is Vic Bangia, VIKBANGIA, and also at Verum Consulting, all one word. Those are my two Twitter handles. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. That's where I publish a lot of content. I'm on this session with you tonight. I'm doing I'm being interviewed tomorrow with Brittany Campbell Turner on Constructor. I run a network called Outsource USA, which is 12 different companies, and we're all publishing things and having webinars and promoting different things. And everybody that's involved in that network is all focused on the employee-centric future of the workplace. So there's a lot of activity going on, and I encourage you to follow me, Verum Consulting, and Outsource USA on LinkedIn. You won't miss a beat if you do that.
I've set a message to the chat saying, listen to CRE Success, the podcast. So that's my
Absolutely.
podcast. So do listen to that. I'm going to send an email around shortly about if you'd like today's content. I've got some more recorded workshops that you can get your hands on. So take a look at that. If you've got value from today, I'm sure you'll get value from that. We do have one more question that's come in here from Khan. And it says, here in India, the international property consultant firms don't work like they do in the USA, in the sense that you work for the organization and the way of procuring feedback is through short 8 to 10 question forms, questionnaires. How do we fulfill that while asking for an individual testimonial or feedback without asking for too much time for the client spending time on this twice? Easiest way I think to answer that question is that just don't ask for them at the same time, right? So you're asking for the questionnaire at a certain stage of the process. The testimonial could come earlier, it could come later. You've definitely identified a good point, which is you don't want to be asking for too many things at once, but asking for things at different stages will make sure that you're not overloading the client and asking for too many things at once. That would be my way of how to deal with that. Any ideas, Vic?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's a very helpful tip. And again, my my whole business is based on building relationships. When I'm working with a client, we actually bring the service providers into the process prior to an RFP even going out the door for an outsourcing initiative. So we're starting out by building relationships and really getting to know each other on the front end. So there's a lot of relationship building techniques to use in doing this that ultimately results in a high level of customer loyalty on the back end. So I think this is great.
Okay. Well, Vic, I think we may as well wrap up now, because in the interest of time management, we've taken about 58 minutes of people's time. So I know it's coming up to 6 o'clock on the East Coast in the United States and 5 o'clock where you are in Central Time. From me, yep. I want to say thank you very much to everyone who joined today. Really enjoyed bringing this content to you. And I know from my perspective, I really look forward to hopefully staying in touch and also to doing more collaborations with Vic and Verum Consulting in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to extend my appreciation as well. Darren's business is fantastic. He and I have been working together. We're actually looking to do more of these where he can grow his presence and his exposure here stateside, and vice versa. I'm always looking to expand my abilities in the Asia Pacific region as well as across Europe. One day when I get back on an airplane, soon, hopefully, we'll be doing that. But thank you everybody for being part of this, and have a great rest of your evening. Stay in touch and be well.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay. Take care now. Bye-bye.